Hey guys, let me just double check, make sure this is working. You know what? I'm sure it's working. Um, so tonight it was 11:22 when I thought about this, but I just wanted to come on real quick. I had the poll to do it earlier, but I with Black Friday sales and things like that, it just didn't work out today. It's some days I find it really interesting where you bridge both worlds, right? So um, I I run a business, and yet, like, I do my spiritual stuff, my light working stuff, stuff like that, and it's all about balance. And then something else added to this today is that galactic government meetings are happening right now too. So there's a lot happening, and sometimes you feel like you're being pulled in all these directions. Hey, Lynn, it's nice to see you. So things kind of get set aside, when you feel like you should do them. Um, and that was actually one of the things, interesting, because I drew this card. I was like, well, what am I going to talk about? And I drew the card Ahu. I think it's Ahu. Ahau is how it's pronounced. And I was reading about it a little bit, and it's all about how where did I see that? Where did I see that now? Oh yeah, examining the concepts, practicing acceptance and allowance in order to embody unconditional love. And this is something that I think a lot of light workers. Hey guys, I'm so glad you're on. Like, I'm totally here because I was called to be here, but also I have to wait until 12 o'clock Central Time to switch over sales. So so I thought I would talk with you guys for a bit. But I recently saw a post in one of the light workers forums, and it made me really question how everybody feels about like their missions, and maybe you guys can help me with this. How do you feel like when you think about all these light workers having these missions, and then your like day-to-day stuff, like how do you guys feel about that? Do you feel like you have a pretty good balance of it? Do you feel like you're maybe more in the 3D um, real world, although that's not necessarily the case, than you would like to be? Do you feel like you have a pretty good handle on things? I would really like to know, because um, I think this is so diverse that when people start putting limitations on things, it can really, oh, Kira's here too. It can really uh, wreck their world, or maybe not wreck their world. That's not a great way to say it, but it can really change things. So why limit yourself, right? Right now, in this now moment, what am I doing as a human? As a human, I'm sitting here talking to you guys, right? As a business owner, I am looking at my phone and waiting for things to change over so I can change over sales. As a soul being, or as a energetic light worker being, I am probably doing Lord knows what, like with the grids and whatever. And then also in my eternal self, my essence of self, right now, I'm attending galactic government meetings. So I'm doing all those things while I'm sitting here. So why would you limit yourself in what you think of yourself? Or why would you put yourself in a box? Like, I guess I just don't really understand this. And so maybe you guys can help me understand this a bit better. And also, I was thinking about today when I was going through emails and having orders coming in, I was thinking about just sitting here and breathing in light language through the heart. And so let's try this. I just want to try this. So when we take a big deep breath before we start with the light language, let's just breathe that in through our heart space and see if that changes things. Because as you guys know, right now I'm like really learning about the heart, bringing things through into the heart versus the mind. The mind's really important, don't get me wrong, but there is a time, well, especially now. I mean, you need to bring things through your heart because then you know if it's a conspiracy theory, you know the truth of it. When you bring it through your heart, you just know. So let's take a deep breath. Okay, we're going to do 3 of these. Let's let these out. Breathe in really big. And then force it out through your mouth and force it all out. So you're breathing in positivity. You're breathing in white light. You're breathing in all the good stuff, right? And then you're breathing out all the negative stuff, the stuff that's not so great. So, okay. So the next time when we do this, let's breathe in, but let's pull it through our heart. Okay. And just see if it changes. And let's do it one more time. Big, deep breath. Bring it in. Just if you don't know what I mean by what I say, like bring it in, just visualize all of your air coming up through, going through your heart, and then when we blow it out. So breathe in, it's coming through your heart, and then blow it out. So I find the reason I'm saying this is because I find by doing that, like when we're all working towards our meditations and our meditations and calming and things like that, I find that this calms me down a lot faster than just doing the regular like breathing in and breathing out and not focusing on where you're putting those breaths. So it's just something to think about when you guys are doing this for like meditation purposes or just breathing exercises. Focus on your chakras, focus on bringing it in through your heart. Okay, so now what I want to do is while you guys focus on your breathing and relaxing, I want to give you guys a light language blessing to open up your heart space, to really clean it out and activate it, okay? So breathe in. And it's really important when you guys do this to actually breathe out through the mouth. Like, it's not as effective for many, not all, but for many, it's not as effective if you just breathe in and then breathe out. You really got to kind of force it through your mouth. So here we go. Shutas kuunta biashuka patahasa. Kaluta sanalia pushkatiata na ata. Wasata shukuna hiasalapa. Iatana sunuta pushaka niata. Kushatia sanala. Uapatia sonoma yasuta. Kuatiatala. Mohala sa ushakiatana. Musata. Muhala. Here we go. Puttakia satatana sakute piacha juta piata naniata ti kutupiatia tias kutitia natiata puttatia nitiata tukiata tukliata niash kutiata tanatka putianes kana puapatia kutiata nakutiata katiato Naskutia padiatkat kan tudiaska kala eato pujukatiato no sotatayo jenanasia tata uskatiato nania pala ata nakutia poskutiata kanele askutiata nasakutia pujukatiata ta askuta pushkatiata nanakiata latiato skutiata na askatiata puskatiata na hasala hanas kuapa genetia sananaya ufatiata sotala hua foshkuhana Nasku usha bajata nana skupatiata. Iaskata askatiata nana. Iaskatiata tada nana. Iaskatiata kata kanadata. Tiaskatiata ushkatia. Nuaskatiata. Nuaskatiata. Bushuashkatiata. Nuaskatiata. Bushuashkatiata. Muskatiata na hasalata. Naskatkiata Naskatkiata Tiashkutra Ata Diaskala Ata Nanahaskata Askata Ashamunda Yaso Bala Atia Kushana Hasa Apatasa Nalapa Mahala Namaste. It's so cool that there's like just randomly coming on. There's like 5 of you. Thank you guys for joining me tonight. We still have, it's only 11:35 here, so there's still time to chit chat. So if you guys just want to chit chat, I'm perfectly fine just chit chatting, asking questions. That was really nice and calming. Today when I was working through orders, I was so worked up. At one point, I put Tibetan music on, and I just sat and did a few breathing exercises, and I just calmed right down. So it's getting better. In the beginning, when I first started like meditating and just being aware of my breathing, it would take a bit longer to kind of calm down, calm the heart down, like calm the brain down. And it's getting quicker now. It's getting a lot quicker. So if it's something you're just starting, definitely keep up with it. It'll happen. So let's see. And I also thought it was really interesting because this card right here, the Aho card, is the card of the child of the sun. And Ra has been coming through a lot lately. And so I thought that was very interesting for my personal journey as well. But I'm just going to read a little bit of this because I think it's kind of important. So you are a luminous triangle, the Trinity made visible in this world of creation. You lift humanity simply through your embodiment of light. So know that you are divine. You are the I am presence, and there is no other. Drawing this card calls into your life the healing power of uncontrollable love. Unconditional love. Bask in its replenishing radiance. You are donning its light of limitless bliss. Know yourself as divine. Know that you are already the mind of light. Return as divine child of the sacred to the great central sun. It is in your every thought and action. Radiate your I am presence. Unconditionally accept yourself as you are. And this is something too, I think a lot of us struggle with, just unconditionally accepting yourself. Once you can get past those doubts about yourselves, or those really hard driven in societal beliefs of yourself, a lot of things can change. When you unconditionally accept yourself. Craft your light in your body and return to a home in the stars that you never really left. Using the current of Zuvwa, the current by which all things return to themselves, experience mystical reunion with source unity. Be at peace. This indicates that the activation of your light body is already in progress. Well, that's really good. So there you guys go. If you guys don't know this, the activation of your light body is already in progress. Stay identified with your solar mastery. Sail on the golden solar currents to your home in the stars. This is actually something that I was talking with Ra, and it was a friend of mine and we were asking questions about. She wanted to know like what the deal is with the sun and her. Like she always feels really drawn to the sun, and in fact, when we go outside, she's always sitting in the sun and I'm always sitting in the shade. And it was really interesting because Ra said to her, that he was really pleased that she's been paying attention and been working, and that she realized that she had a connection with the sun. And when she asked what it was specifically, he said that that is one of your power sources. That is where you draw your power from, or your energy from, or whatever you want to call it, right? And so I was sitting there listening to him speak, and I said, "Father, what is mine?" And he goes, "What do you think, my daughter?" And I was like, "Is it the moon?" And he goes, "Ah, yes." He goes, "You are paying attention." And I was like, "Oh, good. Like I got that right." So mine is the moon, and it makes total sense because I stay out of the sun all the time. I like the sun. I like the warmth of it, but I would rather have the sun out and then me being in the shade. But when the moon comes out, a lot of times I'm just exhausted during the day, and I get re-energized when the sun sets and the moon comes out. And in fact, like taking walks, I love taking walks at night under the moon, and I talk to the moon all the time. I'm sure you guys do too. And so it's always been there for me, and just something I didn't really realize. And then we had another friend there, and I said, "So, if one of my friends is the moon, one of my friends is, or if I'm the moon, my other friend is the sun. What is this other friend like? Is she the sun or the moon, or how does that work?" And he goes, "She pulls her power from the earth." And I was like, "Oh, that makes total sense, right?" I mean, like everybody um, has their own source from which they are attracted to, and which can help them in their um, movement and learning, and where they're pulling this energy from. And although I do connect into the earth to ground, and I ground in very far into the earth, I'm not really like, I wish I was a green thumb. I'm not. I would love to like keep plants alive. I'm not. I can't. Um, but that's where my other friend draws her power. So something else to think about, like what element, or what planet, or moon, sun, earth, where do you feel connected to? That is a place to focus on for drawing your abilities from. Maybe abilities isn't the best word, but drawing your power from, allowing it to energize you, right? So there's a reason if you're exhausted during the day, but all of a sudden the moon comes out and you're like ready to go, you know? So I thought that was really interesting. And I love the fact that this card is all about the child of the sun, because even in the teachings of Ra, or even in like calling Ra your father, you're still a child of the sun, regardless if the moon is your thing. So it's all good. um so let me just double check with this. Does anybody have any questions or want to chat about anything specific? Like I was already ready for bed, so I've been trying to go to bed early, because if I don't, then I stay up too late, and by the time I go to bed to like do the meditations and stuff, it gets really, really late into early morning, which is fine for someone who loves to stay up like I do, but I can't because I have to run a business during the day. So I've been trying to go to bed early, and I had my hair all in pin curls and ready to go to bed, and then I realized I hadn't set the sale up for, what are we on? Small Business Saturday. So that is that is where we are right now. Um, all right. So, what is this? This talks about stay identified with your solar mastery. Sail on the golden solar currents to your home in the stars. Move joyfully towards whatever creates bliss and ecstasy for you. And that's really good. Don't limit yourself, right? Don't limit yourself. Forgive, release, and love all beings, all creation as unconditional caress from the sun. Honor and trust the language of light held within your feelings, from the spiritual compass that guides you home. Open your heart as a flower to the sun and become the same love that holds the universe together. That's really beautiful. I often think about this, and a lot of you are probably going through this too, where you're starting to see people especially in the current 3D climate, that are very adamant about this is the way things are, this is the way they feel. And you're kind of stuck in between, your vision of how you see the situation. And the one thing that I think the best lesson that I've ever learned is patience. I'm not perfect. By no means am I perfect. But realizing that everybody has their own world gets you a lot further in life. So when you realize this, even like your next door neighbor, right? Because they grew up differently than you grew up. They had different influences than you did. Their brain may even be wired differently. They see the world differently than you see the world. And so, when people want to push their ideologies and their concepts and their belief systems, and they're like, I am right because I'm right, it's a lot easier to step aside and not get involved if you realize that, well, maybe in their world, that's what they think. And they can think that, and you can think this. And, hopefully we'll get to a point in our world where we can just openly discuss things and it's not like he said, she said. But when you think about the other person involved and think about it from that perspective of their world is completely different than your world, it'll be a lot easier to just step aside and avoid some of those conflicts. In between worlds, definitely. So I'm just gonna scroll through stuff here, just see what. It's a lot of balance. It's a lot to balance all perspectives of life and missions. Yes, definitely. And I mean, I think I talk about this enough, but I think it needs to constantly be said is that remember your missions here on Earth in this now moment is to make the world a better place. I mean, being nice, being patient, showing unconditional love, those that's like a huge portion of your missions. And it seems like something small, but it's really not. It's really, really not. It's really a huge thing. So when you're wondering, when is my mission going to start? Well, you're already here, so your mission started. Um, focus on that, like um, realize and accept that that is part of your mission, to just be you, to shine really bright, to be nice, to be forgiving, to be caring. And sometimes there's times where you have to step away, um, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like there's just times you have to step away, and that's okay. It doesn't mean get walked over, allow yourself to be walked over. um it doesn't mean like force your perspective on somebody, beat it in them. It doesn't mean that. But it does mean to have as much patience and show as much unconditional love as you can, and that is what is going to help change the world. And along the way, as you learn your lessons, you will learn that you have other things going on or other missions going on. So what have you guys been all up to today? I worked all day. That's what I did. I worked all day. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that, I mean, there's always crazy things happening around here. So, um, there's there's never a dull moment of stuff happening. But I'm just trying to think if there's like anything really important to share with you guys that will help in your lives, help bring understanding to your lives, something that I've recently gone through. Oh, okay, I can tell you guys this. I think this was really, really interesting. So I was talking with some friends, and you listen to a lot of different people today. Are you Lynn, are you like are you in a call center, or like just doing the Black Friday sales thing? So we were talking about, a couple friends and I were talking about the 1111 portal. So, um, you guys are probably familiar with it, right? It happened on 1111. Oh, you're doing podcasts. Oh, that's so cool. Listening to a lot of podcasts. Sometimes I listen to podcasts when I work. So the 1111 portal. I think this is actually kind of really important. So I'm glad I remembered this. We were talking about it, and we were talking about how it was different than most of the portals that we think of, right? And the reason why it was different, I mean, every portal is different because we're always in a new now, right? Makes sense. But this one is different just in the fact that it really gave you a chance to step up your game. The energies were there for you to have an easier time remaining in those higher energies, or at least remaining in the happiness, right? Because that's part of it. You can't get into higher energies if you're not happy. So the first part is taking care of yourself. Um, Once you take care of yourself and your well is full, and you are working on your own happiness, then you can shine that happiness to others, right? And so part of this portal was giving you guys that ability to access those higher wave energies. And this is the part that I was a little nervous about when we were talking about this, because I didn't quite understand it, but I do now. So we were talking about how in the past you can waver, like, right? People, other people will come in and say, "Oh, like we're now in like the fourth dimension, and like you can't go back, and like we're now in like this vibration, and like once you're here, and like this is it, folks." And that's not really how it goes. So, um, as you know, we're human, right? We're in these human bodies. So vibrations, energies, everything is always fluctuating, especially with the craziness of the earth right now. Everything is always fluctuating. So just because you're having one great day where you are really high vibing doesn't mean that you're going to have that the next day, right? Like you have to work at it. It's all about perspective. It's all about allowing. There's a lot of things that go into this, right? So with this 1111 portal and accessing those higher frequencies, making them available to us, I also learned that now if we drop down to really low levels, like if something happens and we're like really sad and depressed and whatever, it's such a way now that a small division is kind of happening where it's going to take some extra energy now to jump up into that amazing feeling again, which seems really scary. And I don't want to scare anybody because that's not what this is about. But we're at a moment now where you should be able to recognize where you are at in your energy level. And if you see yourself and you see your vibration dropping, and nobody's perfect. Not that you allow it to continue to drop, but hey, John, that you recognize it and you do something about it. Okay. So part of this, it's kind of complicated because you need to accept the moment that you're in, right? So let's say that a loved one is ill. You feel really sad about it. You're not supposed to set that aside and be like, oh, they're really ill and I don't care. I'm going to remain way up here. And even though I'm really feeling down here, that's not what it's about. It's about recognizing and allowing you to feel sad for your family member, but at the same time, realizing that, okay, this is the way it is, and I love you unconditionally. but I'm still going to take care of myself. I am not going to let this drop me down further. Does this make sense to you guys? um, I may be doing a really bad job of explaining it, but basically, yeah, yes, Lynn said it right. You have to feel it to heal it, right? And for some of us, it means we have to go down here to do it. But what we were discussing in that about the 1111 portal is that the longer we choose to stay down here, and it's a choice, the harder it's going to be to get back up here where we need to be. And so there's so much involved in this, because in order to maintain a somewhat stable energy level, it means that you need to take care of yourself. It means that you need to recognize what you need. It's good, yes, to be centered, to really work in some meditations, to be working on all of your energy centers. I mean, this is really like a self-love thing. And the moment that you don't do that, and the moment that everything else becomes way more important than you, is when this starts happening. And, like, I'm not saying this is always easy, because I know that, especially in today's climate, living in our 3D world, it can be really tough. But this 1111 portal wants you to be aware of that. This is what we should have all learned by now. We should have all learned to recognize how our vibration can change. So part of it is just recognizing it. Part of it is wanting to stabilize it. And part of it is working towards it versus just letting it engulf us. So Amazing Grace says center, ground, and connection. Yes, perfect. And I would assume if you guys don't know this, it's very important to take some time out in the day if you're feeling overwhelmed or exhausted, and just center yourself, ground yourself, and then connect into whatever you need to connect into. For some people, they can connect into the sun. For some people, they can connect into the earth. Some people can connect into the moon. Some people can just connect with themselves, and that's a big thing. Like, this is one of those things that I talk about a lot, but those that came before us, I think, left out some important information on how we learn to feel our own energies, right? So this is something that is really, really important. If we ourselves don't know ourselves well enough to understand where our energy levels come from, to understand the difference in our energy waves, to understand when we can feel other energies encroaching on our energy, then we need to work at it harder. Because this is really important. This is really what's going to help us or hurt us as we go forward with this. And it's not about, like, there's all these amazing things when people are like, oh, the ascension, and oh, waking up. Well, it's all about doing your own work, right? And it's all about learning who you are. And that's the most important thing. And so when they talk about, did they talk about your self-esteem or your divine self? They talked about, and then unconditionally accepting yourself as you are. These are really, really important things. And so, you guys are perfect just the way you are, just the way you are. And so that was really important. So that was really important. So let's see what you guys all wrote. Alicia Rose says, I transmute it into pure love and light. Then I transmute it to blue heart energy, maybe, and center. And yeah, so, and if you guys don't do yoga, think about getting into yoga. I used to do it, and it was amazing. Honestly, when I was doing yoga, and we started out, my husband and I, we started out really small, like 15 minutes a day, and it was like beginner's yoga. But soon everything got really easy, and then we could do more, and we could do more complicated things. And I was able to connect with myself faster and better, and even connect with my guides. I could hear them better. My clairaudience, for some odd reason, like, worked better. And so now that it's getting cold, we're going to start yoga back up. But if you haven't done yoga, think about it. Think about it. It seems kind of daunting at first, but if it's just you and a friend, or like you you and your significant other, it's a lot easier when you're like doing these weird poses in front of the computer or the TV and trying to figure this all out versus going to a class when there may not be a lot of classes available these days with COVID. So, what else? What else? What else? Hmm. Oh, I can share with you guys that. Um, oh, it's 11:59, and then I'll share with you guys one more story, and then I'll give you guys a blessing, and I'll have to go because I have to go back to work. So I am working on learning to channel. Not that I don't channel, because I do channel. I channel a lot of stuff without even knowing I'm channeling. I do automatic writing. I do light language. Those are all different channeling things. But what I want to do is I want to get better at um, conscious, semi-conscious, and trance channeling. I want to get better at those. And so I think that'd be really fun. And I'm working on it. My problem is like when I because I have been telepathically talking to beings and others for so long, it was really hard for me the first time I went into the meditative state. Um, and the being came through. It was a Fendorian being who came through. It was really hard for me to shut my brain off because that's where like my telepathy happens, and allow him to speak through using my words and my mouth. And so as I was with my teacher, right? And I was carrying on this conversation in my head while I was speaking, but it wasn't very good. I wasn't like speaking very well. And then my teacher was like, well, what's going on right now? And then all of a sudden out of my mouth popped something like, she's having a really hard time because she's carrying out a conversation, a telepathic conversation in her head. She's not used to like speaking. And then in my conversation, in my telepathic conversation, I asked for the being's name, and he gave me his name, and I was like, "This is a really really hard name to pronounce. Can I just call you Fred or something like that?" And so I started kind of laughing, and like it came out my mouth, and then my teacher asked what the name of the person was. Like they knew it was a Fendori and all this stuff, but they were asking like if they had a name. And somehow I spit this name out, and and it was so interesting because um, after I went back and I watched the video of it, I had no recollection of what I was speaking. So I did do some things really well because not having a recollection of what you're speaking means that you are in the back seat, right? And you're allowing the being to come through and to speak. So I thought that was really interesting. But there's a lot of things that I there's a lot of things that need to be worked on. But um, I figure as I go along, I will keep in contact with you guys and let you know how it's going. So when it comes time, if this is something that you're interested in doing, you can see that like not when people start this, it's not perfect, and they have a lot of learning to do, and crazy things are going to happen. So I wanted to share that with you, and I'm sure as I keep doing it, things get better. I will get better, and I'll have more stories more stories to share. The very very first channeling I did, where because I'm so used to automatic writing and I'm so used to telepathic conversations. So my teacher had someone else, had another student, and it was the other student's time to do things she was telling her to do, right? Um, but I was like, well, I want to see if I can go down into this meditative state, and the way we're taught to do it for now, to have our brain focus on like a metronome. which makes it easier if you're focused on that to calm everything down and let the being through. And when these, so like this is something that Michael always told me. Because I was always confused as to how this whole thing works, right? So I asked Michael once, and Michael said, "Well, a being, a spirit, a soul, that's a very big being. So it's only a little teeny tiny piece of me that can fit into the channeler." And then we were talking about how, because I said, this is Michael Jackson, by the way. For those of you that follow me, I have a lot of Michael Jackson stories. Um, so I said, well, what I don't understand is like how when you and I talk, we're always having a really great time. And everybody else who channels you, they're always like, oh, like poor Michael, like he's, sad, or he's whatever, and like whenever I am talking to Michael being channeled, we have a great time. We're laughing and making jokes and whatever. And he told me that the reason that this happens is because um, most channelers have, if you know someone, so like, because most people knew Michael Jackson, right? Or they thought they knew him, or the perception of like who this famous person was. They put that into their channeling. It's like a subconscious thing. And so they don't realize it, but when and if the being comes through, it gets colored by the feelings. So like if a channeler has specific feelings towards, let's just say you're going to channel Michael Jackson, right? And as the channeler, you have specific feelings towards this person, like what you thought of his music, or what you thought of his personal life, or whatever. And if you're not very good at putting yourself in the back seat, those things easily come through. And so we had this conversation a long time ago, but he's like, that's the main problem. Like a lot of people who channel me or say they channel me either really aren't channeling me, or those that are, they're putting their own personal feelings for him or about him into the channeling. And so I've always been aware of this. And while I work on my channeling, I want to make sure that I get really good at putting myself in the back seat, because I don't want to like hinder the message coming out in any sort of way that my brain would think of. And so the cool thing about, let me go back to my story about being with my other student and my teacher. So this just happened a couple weeks ago. So it was the other student's turn to work on some things, and like my teacher was like walking them through it, and we had the metronome thing going, and I was like, well, let's just see what I can get, right? Let's just see what I can get. So I did it. I was able to go in by listening to the TikToks and the breathing. The breathing is really important. And like having your angels and your guides and your team, and you call on God, and you like all this stuff. So like I did that, and then I have my eyes closed, and I heard 3 times very distinctly, "This is Ra." And I was like, "Yeah." It was like telepathically. This is all telepath. I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "This is Ra." I was like, "Yeah, I know it's you." Like, 'cause we talk a lot, and I can feel his energy. And he's like, "Say, this is Ra." And I was like, "I'm not saying anything. This is not my turn. I'm not supposed to be doing this." And I was like, "So, do you want to have a conversation?" And so while the other student was doing, like, Ra and I were having this conversation in my head, because that's how I normally talk to beings, or to entities, beings, ghosts, whatever, galactic people, is through telepathic conversations, and then my clairaudience. And so when the whole thing was over, my teacher was like, "And so I know you had some stuff going on. Who were you talking with?" And I was like, how do you know these things? Like, that's so amazing that, you knew what was going on. And so um, then I was told that, like, when the being comes in and they mention their name 3 times, like, that's, you have to actually open your mouth, because if you don't physically open your mouth, they can't open your mouth for you. So in any case, it's now 12:09. I have a lot to learn, but I'm really excited about it. I'm excited for this next phase. I've kind of stopped the automatic writing for a while. Not to say that it's not going to continue. Um, a lot of times it was Ramses and I automatic writing, and um, eh, it's it's not that we don't automatic write, but we've been doing different kinds of communications lately. So I think my favorite is automatic writing, just because I'm really comfortable with that. I can sit down and I can just write. And then obviously, like, the telepathy and the clairaudience. But there's so many interesting ways to connect, right? I mean, whether it's through a pendulum, whether it's through cards, whether it's through um, your energy centers. There's just so many ways that you can connect. And now, with the veils and things getting thinner, and more help from outside our earth, people wanting to connect. If you want to connect and you want to learn how to do it, like, it's there. It's all about belief. It's all about belief and willing to work at it. So anyway, Alicia says, my idol growing up. Yeah, he's such a great guy. He really is. And he's so funny. Like, he's cracking jokes all the time. It's hilarious. I've been thinking about doing automatic writing. Okay, well, let me tell you a bit about automatic writing first. Let me pop on really quick over on our shop, because I'll stay on with you guys and talk. But I just got to make sure that our sale is actually running. Oh, perfect. Our sale is running. Okay. Let me just do one more double check. So if you guys don't know what I do, if you guys don't know what my day job is, my day job is, I don't think I can share the screen. Can I share the screen? I don't think so. I'll have to show you guys some other time. This is my day job. I'll put it in here. And so I get to use all of my cool magic abilities and stuff to help people, and I really enjoy that. So okay, I don't want to see vintage ladies' faces in my face, though. 1 second. Okay, so let's just talk about automatic writing for just a moment. I was gonna say, where is there some automatic writing? But I think it's sitting. I think my computer is sitting on it. So I was just talking to a friend about, she had just gotten a reading. She had actually gotten a reading from Ruth. So if you guys had caught our special with my friend Ruth from New Jersey, she's a psychic medium, and we had a couple people take her up on readings, and one of my friends did, actually, and so she was told that she was going to be automatic writing, and she said she never quite understood how that works. And she's like, I've tried in the past. I've put the pen to paper, I've closed my eyes, and nothing happens. And I said, well, that's not how it's done. And then she said, well, I've also closed my eyes and I just start drawing little loops. And I keep thinking that, like, spirit's going to move my hand and, like, I'm going to get something cool out of it, right? And that doesn't happen. I said, well, for me, I think for everybody it's going to be a little different, but I can tell you how I do it. So for me, what happens is that it's almost like your own thoughts, right? So when you put your pen to your paper, and it's not that I have to be in a meditative state to do this, but I do find that when I'm calm and relaxed and my brain is clear, that's when the best automatic writing happens, because let's face it, it's channeling, right? So you don't want to have a bogged down brain. You don't want to have you don't want to be really exhausted. Like those are things that will not have the best outcome for automatic writing. So when you automatic write, you want to kind of be in that meditative state, or at least be calm, like whatever that means for you. If that means like some sort of music, for me that means like a dark room. I light some candles. I'm writing down what happened during the day. I ask if there's any messages, things like that, so that I'm in a calm state. So then what I do is I put the pen to paper, and it's almost like you hear yourself thinking. And it even comes through in my voice a lot of times. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it'll come through in Ramsey's voice, depending on like how he wants to interact with me. And then you can also feel the energy come in. So if you're aware of changes of energy, and we just talked about this, that's why this is so important, you can feel when other beings are there. So there's different types of energy, right? Obviously. But these energies come from different places. So each person, I'm just calling people, whether they're ETs or, family members or whatever, each person will have their own energy signature. Okay, Alicia says she can see them. That is amazing. Kudos to you. That's super awesome. If you can see them, that makes it even better. But if you can recognize a change in energy, that helps you too. And then you can say, hey, I'm here. If there's a message, do you want to automatic write? So you will hear like in your brain, once upon a time, and then you just write that once upon a time. And before you know it, you will be writing and not even knowing what you're writing. And when you read it, it won't sound like you, okay? Because you'll be using words that you don't necessarily use. Now, they can really only use words in your vocabulary or words in your brain. So even if they're there, but you don't use them, they can use them. So, but if it's something that you don't really like, they have to use, they just have to use words in your vocabulary because they're using your brain in order to write, right? So when you reread it, it should not sound like something you would write. And there was one time where I was writing with Michael and he gave me this word and I was like, what are you talking about? This is a ridiculous word. He goes, it's not ridiculous. Look it up and you'll see what it means. And I did. I looked it up and I was like, oh, okay, so you're right. It does mean that. Okay, so Alicia says, so many energies. I'm so serious. I can feel them in front of my face right now, perhaps my higher self. So this is always the hard thing of it. Like, how do you learn whose energies are whose, right? And I think that's something that a lot of us struggle with. And as you continue your automatic writing and as you continue learning about your energy and being able to feel other energies, you will kind of figure out like, oh, this is the same energy that keeps visiting me, and then figure out who is it. So I don't know if I have any specifics to help you figure out like who the people are. I can do this though. So, okay, when you're in a room of males, right? Men have a certain masculine energy. Not all men, okay? Because now we're getting to like more enlightened beings, but masculine energy. You guys know what it feels like, right? And then you know what feminine energy feels like. So I should probably ask you, do you guys know what like male masculine energy feels like? And do you know what female feminine energy feels like? So that's the first question. Okay, so male energy is denser, usually. Doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's denser. It's a little heavier. It's a little, like if you were lifting weights, okay, this is the best way I can describe it. I don't know why they shot this picture, but if you were lifting weights, it's like there's more weights. So it's a little bit heavier to breathe, like it's, you're putting more energy, the intensity, yes, thank you. So the intensity is a little more intense. So when you have female energy, it's very soft. Male energy is kind of hard. Female energy is very soft. Female energy is very flowy, where male energy is pretty stagnant's not the word, but it's very kind of straight lined, right? Um, Female energy is lighter, right? Male energy is a little heavier, right? So it's the yin and the yang. It's the opposites. So this is a really good place to start. When you are feeling energies, you have to first try to sort through them. So, like Alicia, like you're saying, you have all these people in the room, right? You have to kind of make up your own way how you're going to kind of allow one to step forward so you can really feel the energy of that person. Start off by feeling it to see if it's male or female. And then I mean that usually works. Like I'm trying to think, well, does it really work for like archangels? Does it really work for like ETs? But in a way it kind of does. Oh, so you talk to them, so then you should be able to just ask them, and get it all figured out. So so for me, when I first encountered, it's gonna sound ridiculous. When I first encountered Winston Churchill, I was sleeping. And there was a puff of cigar smoke in my face, and it woke me up. And I went back to bed, but it stayed with me, and the energy of it stayed with me. And at first, I wasn't quite sure who it was. I knew it was male, not just because of the cigar smoke, but because it felt male to me. And then days later, our whole porch was filled with cigar smoke with that same energy. And when I asked myself who it was, that was the first name that popped in my head. And so I kind of ignored it. And then, I don't know, months or so later, I was like, I went in for a channeling session and I was like, I have this thing with like this cigar smoke being blown in my face, and then I smell it over here and I smell it over here. Would it be weird if like Winston Churchill was trying to get a hold of me? And the person that I went to at the time, like, he's really funny. And he's like, I don't know what Winston Churchill would want with you, but that is kind of weird. But so anyway, but it turned out it was Winston Churchill, and he did have a message. And so that's one way. Like if you can smell, perfume is usually, I mean, there's also like crossover loved ones. So like don't think, like, I always talk about different beings. I talk about like ETs and like passed over people of notoriety, but there's also family members and stuff. So perfumes tend to be angels, and females, or even like colognes, male cologne. And I've never really had the super cold. So when I work with beings, and I always set up my boundaries, right? So like I don't worry about like negative beings coming in, just because I recognize it, but it's not in my field of view. It's not what I agreed to do, right? Like it's my guides are like protecting me and stuff like that. So I never get that freezing sensation. I never. If I'm working with a being, I am like flush, I'm sweating, I'm really, really hot. So good night, John. Thank you for popping in. And so I don't know what to tell you about the freezing. the freezing thing, I don't want to say like just because it's freezing doesn't mean it's negative, right? Like people will say that, but I'm not going to say that because I'm not going to put limitations on it. It might be someone who lived up in the Arctic for all I know. It's more about what the energy feels like to you. If the energy feels safe, if you have a really good connection with your guides, your teams, your angels, if you trust, if you ground yourself, those are the things. Those are the things that matter. If you're able to talk to them, yeah, if you're able to talk to them, just ask them. And like it could also be. I'm not one much to like talk with like fairies and like things like that, but I do see them. I do, like, if I'm outside and I can see like this the sparks kind of flying around. Not just when I get dizzy, but like just in general, if you look outside, um, that's like the fairy realm, the fae realm, right? And I don't really talk with them, but I know that they're there. And so I'm not sure like what those realms, those energies feel like. So it's just one of those things where there's no, there is no one solution, right? There's no one answer. Um, and it's something where this is how, in order to learn who those people are, this is how you learn about yourself. So um, you can do cards, you can do your pendulum, and you have to be very creative and specific and say, okay, so the person who's making it feel cold in here, can you step forward, please? Right? And then use your pendulum if you're a pendulum, or say, okay, so, please tell me about yourself, something like that. And, like, it is what it is. And as long as you feel safe, you're fine. And as long as you have good relationships with your peoples, you're good to go. So we have a cat. We also have a black cat, not this black cat, but we have a ghost black cat that lives in this house, and we see her very often, walking, usually walking between the rooms. Um, Bastet. Oh, isn't that funny? I said Bastet, and my cat was like, "What? What did you say?" Um, that's really funny. Yeah, I love Bastet, actually. Sekhmet and Bastet. Yeah, I have a special place in my heart for those two. So what else? This has been really great. Does anybody else have any questions about anything else? Gushitia, so kulo doria jugonatia, pasikadiata kiato, donora sikadiato. Ola kyoto ni askutiat gijina tata zugujubarajana, jizia zozobatia zuja agujanatia zugujapatiazana, tujipia uti jugujanaza, tia zoja ajekaliatia tuku, patiata sanatata, tulia monia sukupata, na kyota rajukata, ietsitita a, puuku, tatia laushutana, na yokupa, tia gojatatayasata, nalayasa. Okay, so I guess if there's no more questions, you know what? Let me look at this, even though this is gonna really mess with the. I just don't want to put it. Let me see. This is an older journal. I might have some automatic writing I could leave you with. Let's see. And then, so there's also times where, like, in automatic writing, I have conversations, and it's best if you do the conversations to write it down. And so this is a really great way to start conversing telepathically, because how they're working with you in automatic writing is they're either shooting the information into your channeling centers, shooting the information to your channeling centers, or they're making you feel things, or they're shooting it in through clairaudience, or they're telepathically giving it to you, right? So there's a lot of ways it can come in. And if you get to the point where you know the being you're talking with, and you, and you can kind of stop and ask a question and then continue writing. What I do is I'll let the being, so like this is Ramses, and then I'll ask the question, but I'll write my question down in my journal, and then I'll write his answer. So then, years later or whatever, months later, weeks later, when I look at it, I have the whole question and answer thing that we did, and it's all done through automatic writing. Um, oh, I wonder what this was about. I want to read through this first because I want to honor him and not give out information that he would feel would be too private. So let me just look at this real quick. Okay, so I don't think this is really specific. It's not that specific, but I can read to you. I can read this to you. So usually what happens is, like, for me specifically writing with Ramses, he'll come in with, you'll feel his energy, or I feel his energy, and then he'll come in with some language, whether it's like he normally speaks in this um, combination of a Sumerian, Egyptian, Orion language where it's like all put together. So then I write it down, and then we go from there. So, and in the beginning, when I started writing, so this is interesting too. When I started writing from him in the beginning, it was um, very much in the way he talks. Like, he's very old fashioned. And so words would be changed. Words would be changed around, and like old words would be used. But like now that we do it so much, he's changed a little bit. Like, he's learned to be a little more hip. I don't know if that makes sense. Hip. So his wording has changed a little bit, and we speak so much that it's, instead of being kind of long and flowery, which it still is, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that, by the way. It is a little more modern. So, okay. So he says, "My darling, Shana Tet." I don't know. I can't pronounce that. And then he says, "I love your mind. Thank you for bringing me through. You fill my heart with such joy. I know I know you keep processing the information over and over, wanting to find a loophole. There is no loophole this time, dearest." And I said, "I just keep thinking there has to be a way to fix it. All I need to do is keep my wits intact, and I'm going to make it happen." And he said, "There is no way. Your missions and contributions to this earth in this specific time are more important than," and I'm not going to say what that is. And then I said, "When then? I find it hard to believe that we can set it up this way with all this chaos that has happened." And he said, "Yes, well, you were correct. My cake comment was because then it was not the time to discuss it. But don't ever think I wouldn't want us to be together. Don't ever think my human portion isn't missing you." Oh, it goes on and on and on. So anyway, I'm not going to read it all, but yeah, so you can really get a lot of really good conversations. And then, like, there's been conversations where let's just say I'll be having a conversation with Ramses, right? And I'll be writing it down. These are the best ones. And towards the end, I will hear my clairaudience. I will hear Michael come in and like push Ramses away and say, "I want to say goodnight too," or "I want to say this." And he will like push him out of the way and say, "I'm trying to have a conversation." And then, like, all of a sudden, Michael will be like shouting, like, "Good night." And then I'd be like, "You guys, I can totally hear what you're doing. Just hang on just 1 second. So it's really funny. Like it's really amusing. And it's funny when you think about passing to the spirit world. So like it took me a while to understand this. But like people who are have passed over, like it doesn't matter how old the person is, right? Or like what time period. So people who have passed over, whether it's um, in BC, AD, whatever, Uncle Jim, those people go into the spirit world. All right. But then when when you contact like the Palladians, right? They're from like the fourth dimension. So you have all these different dimensions and densities coming into play. And so where these people are, and a lot of times the people that have passed over, they're still carrying on lives. So it's very interesting to think that, I mean, obviously this is not the end, right? This is just the beginning. So like when we pass, we just continue living in a different way. And so this grape, like this grape that is me, will go into the spirit world. But then like I'll continue being me in the spirit world, but like my essence will go back up into my oversoul or my grape to have another grape. But like the way I am right now will just continue in just a different form. It's kind of complicated because there is no ending and there is no beginning and there's numerous us's. But when you think about it, it's very interesting how I guess I've learned. I guess I've learned through this journey that just like they had lives here when they were in the 3D, they now have lives in the spirit world, and they can actually go to different dimensions. If like the fourth dimension, if there's like a meeting or whatever, they can go to the fourth dimension, and with technology they can be heard at these meetings and stuff like that. So it's very interesting to think of like it's easy to think of Michael because like he was with us not very long ago, right? So like that's the one thing we have conversations about. Like he's like, don't forget, he's like, I was here not that long ago, like I remember how things are here in this world. Where like when you have a being like Ramses who came from a very different time, than Michael did, like his ideologies and his perceptions and the way he handles things, it's just very different. And you there's no way you can really compare, like apples to oranges, right? And so when you ask these beings, or when these beings decide to be a part of your life, there's a learning curve for everybody involved because it's not, like let's just say Michael, like it's an easier learning curve because he was here. So like he's up with the times, right? But like when you have older beings like Ramses, or even those who passed over in like the 1800s or whatever, there's a learning curve that takes place when you're learning about them and learning to speak with them, because they're going to speak and act the way that they were used to doing. And so for you, it's very complicated for you to put your ideologies of like this world, this 3D world, on them isn't really fair. But yet, if they want to be involved in your world, they have to kind of sort of make exceptions to like learn about the things that are happening in this world. Otherwise, there's just big disconnects, and it's hard. And so it's a good thing that you have beings like Michael, who was recently passed, to like kind of help get everybody up to date, and help everybody connect in a way where we can all kind of be on a level playing field, if this makes sense. So I think that's one of the most interesting things I've learned with working with beings from the other side. I do, in the past, I've done a lot of automatic writing with like various ET groups as well. And of course, they have their own way of coming through, right? A lot of times it's more mechanical, um, but it's kind of the same. It's kind of the same process. Where I guess the only difference is that like the ET groups, unless it's like your specific ET family, the ET groups are maybe a little more like mechanical in how they're getting the information to you, because a lot of times these groups are using devices to help them get in contact with you. Whereas the those who have passed over are not really using devices. They're using their own abilities and things, because like I asked Michael once, I said, what, like, if you come to visit, like, what do you see? Like, do you just see energy, or like, what do you see? And he said that he does see energy. He can see, like, like in those ghost things where they where they show heat signatures. He said he can see like heat signatures. And I find all this very fascinating. I'm always trying to like figure this all out, how this all goes on, because um, for so long we have just been in this 3D world, and nobody wants you to look beyond this 3D world. But there's so many other realms, and so many other places that exist, even when you meditate, the places that you go. And how does this all work? Like, how does it all work? So i'm always um I'm always trying to dig into that stuff, and figure that stuff out. So, okay, now that I talked for like an hour, um, I did have something on the quantum. If I can find it. Because this is something that's actually still affecting the Earth, but I can't think of what they called it. They called it the quantum something. The quantum solar exchange is what they called it. Oh, it's right here. I think. The quantum solar exchange. So, okay. So I think it's another term for the solar minimum, but this was written back in May of 2019, but this is still affecting Earth. So I'll read this too. This came from, I don't know, do I say who this came from? I don't say who this came from, but I'm thinking it was the Orions. I don't know why I'm saying that. Anyway, it says, you are feeling the effects of the energies from the solar magnetic storm winds as they are compressed under pressure, creating solar shock waves as they hit the Earth's magnetosphere. This compression of these two foreign forms of magnospheric energy waves directly affects how we function and how you function and feel. The energy compression and exchange is called the quantum energy exchange. I would never know that. That's not something that I would be able to write. But that came out of automatic writing. So that's a really good example of, like, it's different when you're talking with like family and friends versus like getting information from like galactic groups, right? So this is a really good example of like a very serious, they're writing information to you that you have no idea, you don't understand. Where like the other one that I read to you is like a very personable, writing as though like someone is just a couple states away type of thing, and they know what you're going through day after day type of stuff. So okay, so with that said, thank you guys for popping on with me and spending time with me. As you know, it is always random, but the most perfect random time is the now random time. So in any case, many blessings to you. I will leave you with a galactic light language blessing, and I hope you guys have a wonderful week. And yeah, so
duasya tu poku ushkat I nasaka ala tu ushotapahas numa mabihi kuoshot kikyasa tu un makaliashota kuahasa wapia sunopa kiakasha uto ulona nayasata kuusha ka atias kuumpa kioshojaza na aso ohota haso hohaya sikiit no oma na la asku up iata hasa wa ushuku uhuna na la hapa kuapa na ushaka diasa la asa wanata kuusha manasa mahala dua ba asat. Namaste. That was like a mixture of that ancient Orion language and a little bit of Sumerian language in there, and then there was one word in there that was I think it was an Elohim. Anything that's like and I probably can't do that. Oh, hey Sharon. It's so nice to see you. Yeah, everything's really random. I'm glad you guys popped in though. I'm glad you popped in. I was gonna say that was but let me see if I can think about it. So anytime it is that's so funny. Now that I'm like trying to use my brain to think about it, I can't think about it. So I guess it's not meant to be thought about or discussed. So it was kind of fun. We talked about let's just recap a little bit. We talked about it's not here, the Ahau card, and how it talks about examining the concepts of self, practicing acceptance and allowance, and embodying unconditional love. We talked about different types of channeling, some of my experiences with starting to consciously, subconscious, unconscious, those type of channeling. We talked about automatic writing. Talked a bit about how to automatic write, the differences. I don't know. We talked about a lot. I probably am missing some things on there. But yeah, you'll have to check it out. It's nice to see you. So it's a good time to end now because it's 1 hour and 22 seconds, and it's going to be 21, 22, 22. So much love, you guys. We'll talk to you later.